Family, today is not just another day. April 12, 2025 is a divine appointment. It's not a coincidence that you are alive, alert, and positioned to hear this word. There are days that mark history, not just globally, but spiritually. Today is one of those days. You've been asking questions, haven't you? Why do I feel this stirring in my spirit? Is something about to shift? Family, let me tell you something about the nature of divine timing. When God marks a day, it's never ordinary. April 12, 2025 is not just a square on a calendar. It is a moment that heaven has been preparing you for. And I know some of you have been feeling this tension in your spirit. It's been difficult to explain. You wake up and you feel like something is coming. You don't have the full picture, but your spirit is unsettled in a good way. That's because when God is getting ready to move, he begins by stirring the hearts of his people. Before the world ever sees it, the chosen ones begin to sense it. God is a God of intentionality. He does not operate by randomness. He is not casual about your life. The same way he formed you in your mother's womb with precision, with detail, with vision, he orders your days with that same intentionality. So when we talk about April 12, we're not talking about a regular Saturday. We're talking about a date God circled in eternity before you were even born. And if God marked it, that means there is something attached to it, something divine, something sacred. You see, in our human nature, we often look for signs in the physical realm, changes in our finances, in our careers, in our relationships. But God works from the inside out. When he marks a moment, he first begins to prepare your heart. And that's why this past week, this past month, some of you have been going through this internal wrestling. You've been waking up at strange hours. You've been thinking more deeply. You've been questioning things you used to accept. That is not random. That is preparation. That's God tugging on your spirit saying, get ready. I'm about to release something. April 12, 2025 is a prophetic appointment. And when heaven schedules an appointment with you, you don't want to miss it. But let me help you understand something. When God marks a date, he doesn't always reveal what will happen because he's not just trying to give you an outcome. He's cultivating your obedience. Will you trust him when all he gives you is a word? Will you walk into this day with faith, even if you don't have full understanding? That's the real test. Think about the children of Israel. God told them to march around the walls of Jericho, not knowing which day the walls would fall. But because they obeyed each day, they were in position on the day of breakthrough. Some of you have been walking in obedience, not realizing that you were being positioned for this very moment. Every prayer, every tear, every yes, it was building momentum. Heaven was taking record. And now the appointed time is here. Let me speak this clearly. Today is not about coincidence. It's about convergence. The convergence of your preparation and God's timing. The meeting place of obedience and outpouring. This is what it means for a day to be marked. Not just marked by God, but marked for you. You've come through seasons where it felt like you were walking blind, trusting God but not seeing results, believing for more but surrounded by less. But here's what I've learned about God. He is never late, but he is also rarely early. He waits until everything is aligned, your maturity, your readiness, your hunger, and then he releases what has been held up. So what will really happen today? You will see the evidence that God has been behind the scenes the whole time. Some of you thought God had forgotten. You questioned if the promises over your life were even real. But April 12 is the answer to that doubt. It's the reminder that God doesn't forget what he promised, even when time tries to make you think he has. You might have stopped praying about it. You might have buried the vision. But God says, I never buried it. I was building it. And now the date has come. Let me tell you, when heaven moves, it doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for your situation to look ideal. It doesn't care if people counted you out. When God says it's time, it's time. And when a day is appointed, nothing can cancel it. No demon in hell, no fear in your heart, no mistake in your past. God is not limited by what limited you. He's sovereign and he's faithful. So walk into this day with holy expectation. Don't treat it like any other day. Don't let routine rob you of revelation. Ask God, what are you doing today? Be sensitive to his voice. Be alert in your spirit. Because the truth is, this day carries weight. It carries a divine instruction, a divine encounter, a divine release. And the ones who will receive the most from it are not the ones who have it all together, but the ones who are willing to say, God, I trust you even when I don't understand you. April 2025 is not here to entertain you. It's here to transform you. Heaven doesn't waste days. So if God marked this one, you better believe it's because he has marked you. One thing I've come to understand about God is that his loudest moves often begin in silence. When heaven is preparing to release something powerful, it doesn't always come with fanfare. It doesn't always come with a warning or a loud announcement. Sometimes it comes quietly through a whisper, through a stirring, through the kind of inner restlessness that makes you pause and say, God, what are you doing in this moment? And family, if you've been in a season that feels like silence, I need you to lean in, because silence in the kingdom is never empty. It's full of intention, full of movement, full of unseen preparation. You see, we often misinterpret silence as inactivity. We think that if we don't see anything changing, then nothing is happening. But the truth is, heaven does its best work in the hidden places, in the unseen, in the quiet hours when no one's watching. Because what God is building in you is too sacred to be exposed prematurely. That's why he moves in silence first, because he's working on you. He's strengthening your roots before he shows the fruit. He's aligning your character with your calling. He's shaping your spirit to carry what he is about to release. So if you felt like nothing is shifting, if you've been praying and not hearing, if you've been faithful and not seeing, don't give up. That's not the absence of God. That is the strategy of God. He's drawing you deeper, teaching you to trust, building your discernment. He's asking you to believe in the movement of heaven, even when your eyes don't confirm it. That's mature faith. That's real relationship. There's something sacred about those silent seasons, because that's when you discover who God really is. When there's no applause, no confirmation, no signs, just the voice you remember hearing, just the word he already gave you. And that's when your faith either crumbles or it deepens. God doesn't want you living off emotional highs. He's training you to walk by revelation, not stimulation. That's why he speaks softly sometimes, because only those who are listening closely will hear. Only those who've positioned themselves in his presence will recognize that the silence is not punishment, it's preparation. Let me speak to those who have been feeling isolated lately. You've been disconnected, pulled away from people, from places, from patterns that used to feel comfortable. You've been wondering why doors are closing, why relationships are shifting, why your routine suddenly feels too small. That's not rejection, it's redirection. God is separating you for something specific. He is creating the space for you to hear him clearly, and he often does that by quieting the noise around you. Sometimes the silence is God protecting the sacred. He won't allow distractions to follow you into your next. He's quieting your environment so that you don't miss the whisper. Because that whisper, it carries strategy. It carries instruction. It carries deliverance. And if you're too busy trying to see the move, you might miss the invitation to hear it. And hear me on this. When the move of God begins in silence, it's because it's going to be sudden. Sudden moves come from silent moments. There's a divine tension in the kingdom. The quieter the season, the more explosive the release. So if everything around you has felt still, that's a sign that something in the spirit is building. Heaven is setting things in place, aligning resources, awakening people, shifting circumstances. And when the fullness of time comes, it will look like it happened overnight, but you'll know it didn't. It was happening in the dark the whole time. Let me remind you of Jesus. Before he ever performed a miracle, he spent 30 years in silence. No stage, no recognition, just growth, just obedience, just preparation. And when his time came, when the appointed moment hit, it was as if he emerged out of nowhere. But he didn't come out of nowhere. He came out of the secret place, out of submission, out of deep intimacy with the Father. Family, that's how God moves. That's how he raises people. That's how he promotes those who've been hidden. He trains them in silence so they can stand in power. So if you've been feeling overlooked, this word is for you. You haven't been forgotten. You've been preserved. God has hidden you so he can strengthen you. He's delayed exposure so that you don't collapse under the weight of the spotlight, because what's coming is heavy, but so is the anointing he's placing on your life. Now is the time to tune your ear to the Spirit. Don't waste the silence. Don't rush through it. Ask God, what are you saying beneath the surface? Because there's a message there. There's a mission there. There's an answer wrapped in that stillness. And those who discern the silent season will never be caught off guard when the sudden moment arrives. Family, if there's one thing I've learned about how God moves, it's this: transformation always begins within before it ever manifests around you. We want to see changes in our circumstances. We want the breakthrough in our finances, in our relationships, in our careers. And yes, God cares about all of that, but the true evidence that God is moving in your life is not just what He shifts around you, it's what He heals, reveals, and reconstructs inside of you. You see, before God ever calls you to walk into a new space, He first calls you to become a new person. Before He releases the blessing, He deals with the brokenness. And we don't always like that, because inner work is quiet work. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't show up in the way people notice, but heaven notices. And heaven responds to the heart that is surrendered, not just the hand that is reaching. That's why you've been feeling what you're feeling. That's why old thought patterns have been surfacing. That's why your tolerance for things that once satisfied you has been decreasing. That's why you're craving something deeper, something purer, something real, because God is transforming you, not for aesthetic change, but for eternal impact. And family, can I be honest with you? You can carry the promises of God with the identity of who you used to be. There are some blessings that can't rest on an unstable version of you. There are doors you're praying for that require a level of maturity, of clarity, of wholeness that only comes from deep internal transformation. So when God starts dealing with your heart, when He starts highlighting your wounds, your fears, your pride, your insecurities, it's not to shame you, it's to free you. He loves you too much to let you walk into a new season with old chains. God is not just trying to improve your life. He's trying to align your identity, because when you finally see yourself the way He sees you, you walk differently, you speak differently, you make decisions with a kingdom mindset, not a fearful one. And that shift, that inner revelation, is what causes the atmosphere around you to change. You don't wait for life to make you better. You become better and life adjusts. Some of you have been asking God, when will things change? And heaven is saying, when you change, not in shame, not in striving, but in surrender. Because the moment you allow God to transform your inner world, your outer world will begin to mirror that transformation. That's why the enemy fights your mind so aggressively. That's why the warfare has been intense in your thoughts, because he knows if he can keep you bound on the inside, it doesn't matter how much freedom God places around you. But today I want to declare over you, the internal war is not in vain. The process you're in is proof that God is not finished with you. He's just getting started. He is healing the parts of you that you thought were permanent. He is redeeming the areas you thought would always be broken. He is restoring the vision you lost when life disappointed you. And He's doing it all, not with noise, not with spectacle, but with precision, with grace, with love. There is a version of you that the world has yet to see, a version that is whole, bold, anointed, wise. And the only way to meet that version is to say yes to the inner work, to allow God to stretch you beyond your comfort, to sit with Him in silence, to let Him peel back the layers that life built around your heart. That's where transformation lives. In the yielding, in the wrestling, in the trust. And I know it's not easy. Change never is. But what God is building in you will not collapse. What He is forming in you cannot be faked. This isn't about temporary hype. It's about being so rooted in who He says you are that no storm can shake you, no delay can distract you, no lie can define you. So the next time you feel frustrated because your situation hasn't changed, pause and ask God, what are you changing in me? Because that's where the real miracle begins. That's where the breakthrough is birthed, not in a shift of scenery, but in a shift of self. And when that inner transformation takes root, you won't have to chase what's next. What's next will find you because it's drawn to who you've become. Don't despise the process. Don't rush through the stretching. Embrace it. Let God finish the work he started. Because when the transformation inside of you is complete, the world around you won't be able to ignore the glory that follows. There are moments in your life when God will call you to walk forward before he explains where you're going. Moments when the instruction comes before the revelation. And in those moments, what God is testing is not your talent, not your connections, not even your knowledge. He's testing your obedience, because obedience is the door that opens the way to the supernatural. Family, the next level is not unlocked by convenience. It's unlocked by surrender. Some of us are waiting on confirmation, waiting on clarity, waiting for the full picture. But what if God isn't going to give you the full picture until you move? What if the very thing you're waiting to understand will only make sense on the other side of obedience? This is where trust becomes real. This is where your relationship with God is no longer based on what he can explain, but on who he is. Because God does not owe us details, he gives us instruction. And the ones who will walk into the fullness of what he's doing in this season are the ones who are willing to obey when it doesn't make sense. That's the kind of obedience that shifts atmospheres. That's the kind of obedience that draws heaven into your reality. When you say yes without a safety net, when you step out while your knees are still shaking, when you release what you thought you needed to hold on to, that kind of obedience speaks volumes in the spirit. It says, God, I trust you more than I trust my fear. I trust your voice more than I trust what I see. I trust your plans more than I trust what I see. And can I tell you something? God honors that. Heaven responds to obedience, not partial obedience, not delayed obedience, immediate obedience, even when you don't know how it's all going to work out. Because your yes gives God room to move. It gives him permission to blow your mind. But when we hesitate, when we second guess, when we rationalize our way out of divine instructions, we delay what he wanted to do through us. Think about Abraham. God told him, leave your father's house, your country, everything familiar, and go to a land I will show you. Will show you, not has shown you. Abraham had no GPS, no itinerary, just a word. And yet he went, he obeyed, and it was that obedience that made him the father of nations. It wasn't a moment of comfort. It was a moment of complete surrender. And in the same way, God is calling some of you to leave your comfort, to walk away from what's familiar, to move on a word, because there's something greater on the other side of your obedience. And here's the beautiful part. God doesn't expect you to have it all figured out. He's not looking for perfect performance. He's looking for a willing heart. A heart that says, God, I may be scared, but I'll still go. I may not have the plan, but I'll still move. That's faith. That's obedience. And that's the posture that activates breakthrough. You see, obedience is not just about following rules. It's about alignment. When you obey God, you come into agreement with his will. You step into the rhythm of heaven, and everything that has been prepared for you begins to align. The doors that were once closed begin to open. The favor that seemed distant begins to chase you down. The relationships that are meant to elevate you begin to find you, because obedience puts you in the right place for the right release. And I know it's not always easy, especially when God asks you to give up something that you love, to walk away from something that once worked, to close a door that you prayed for. But that's when you realize obedience isn't about loss, it's about exchange. God is not asking you to give something up just to take it from you. He's asking you to release it so he can replace it with something better. Something that's aligned with your assignment, something that carries eternal weight. So if God is calling you to do something in this season, do it. Don't delay. Don't wait until it's convenient. Move when he says move. Speak when he says speak. Let go when he says let go. Because your obedience is not just about you. It's connected to lives, to destinies, to miracles that are waiting on the other side of your yes. There are blessings that are voice activated. There are breakthroughs that respond to obedience. And when you move in faith, when you step, even without seeing, you give God something to breathe on. You give heaven permission to perform the word he already spoke over your life. So stop second guessing what you already heard. Stop waiting for a second word when you haven't obeyed the first. Your yes is powerful. Your obedience is prophetic. And right now, more than ever, heaven is looking for those who will say, not my will, but yours be done. Because when obedience meets faith, the supernatural is inevitable. Family, there is something powerful that happens when we learn how to see beyond what's in front of us, when we stop interpreting our present based on how it feels and start discerning it based on what God is doing. Because what you're walking through right now is not random. It's not pointless. It's not wasted. It's prophetic. Your current reality may look ordinary, even painful, but heaven is not looking at your situation the same way you are. Heaven sees the strategy in your storm, the destiny in your discomfort, the preparation in your process. You've got to learn how to see with the eyes of the Spirit, because the natural will lie to you every time. This is why we need discernment like never before, because discernment allows you to identify a divine setup when everything around you looks like a setback. Discernment allows you to say, God, I don't like this, but I know you're in this. It gives you the wisdom to hold on when everything in you wants to give up. And it gives you clarity to recognize the hand of God in situations where your emotions can't. You see, the enemy wants you to misinterpret your season. He wants you to believe that because it's hard, it must not be God. But that's a lie. Some of the most anointed seasons in your life will be the ones that stretch you the most. Growth and discomfort often go hand in hand. So don't be quick to rebuke what you should be learning from. Don't curse the very process that's carrying you into your purpose, because what feels like chaos may be the very environment where your calling is being confirmed. There's a kind of maturity that comes when you stop asking God, why is this happening to me? And start asking God, what are you showing me through this? That's when your perspective shifts. That's when you realize you're not being punished. You're being positioned for purpose, for power, for promotion. Because every great move of God begins with someone who learned how to see beyond the moment and tap into the meaning. Family, I want you to hear this. Just because you don't feel like God is speaking doesn't mean he's not. Sometimes the silence is a sign that the lesson is in progress. The teacher doesn't speak during the test. And some of you are in a testing season, not because God is mad at you, but because he's solidifying your faith. He's sharpening your vision. He's separating your identity from your circumstances so that you stop being moved by what you see and start being rooted in what you know. And you know what happens when you gain spiritual vision? You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. You stop being distracted by temporary trials and start living with eternal focus. You stop reacting to people who don't understand you because you realize their opinion has no authority over your assignment. You stop chasing after things that God never called you to pursue because your vision is clear. You know who you are, you know where you're going, and you know who sent you. This is what happens when your eyes are opened. You start to see the pattern. You start to connect the dots. You realize that what happened to you wasn't just pain. It was part of the preparation. That closed door, it was protection. That delay, it was divine timing. That betrayal, it was exposure, not rejection. And all of it is working together. All of it is speaking. All of it is leading you somewhere. But the question is, can you see it? Because some of us are asking for a word from God and he's saying, I've already been speaking. You just haven't been looking through the right lens. You've been interpreting life through fear instead of faith, through your past instead of your promise, through your wounds instead of his word. And until your perspective shifts, the patterns won't make sense. Family, when you start seeing prophetically, you begin to expect miracles in mundane moments. You start leaning in when things don't add up. You start anticipating a blessing in the midst of the battle because you know that nothing in God is random. He's intentional. He's strategic. And if it's happening, he's using it. Even the things the enemy meant for harm, God is flipping them. He's turning them into fuel for your future. That's how powerful he is. So don't get stuck in what it looks like. Don't build a belief system around a temporary circumstance. You were created to see beyond. You were created to live by faith, not by sight. And when your eyes are locked on Jesus, when your heart is anchored in his truth, you will begin to see your life the way heaven sees it, full of purpose, full of alignment, full of prophetic movement. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are right in the middle of something divine. And even if it doesn't make sense right now, you will look back and realize it all had meaning. There is something so beautiful, so holy about learning to rest in the unknown. It doesn't sound exciting. It doesn't make headlines, but in the kingdom of God, rest is not passive. It's prophetic, because when you choose to rest, you are making a bold declaration that your trust is not in your ability to figure it out, but in God's ability to work it out. And sometimes, family, the most powerful move you can make in a season of uncertainty is not another plan, not another hustle, not another overanalysis of what might happen, but surrendering into stillness and trusting that God is already ahead of you. You see, rest is not weakness, it's warfare. It's a weapon against the chaos that tries to rob you of peace. It's the posture of someone who knows their God is faithful. And right now, more than ever, the Lord is calling you to enter into a rest that doesn't come from answers, but from assurance. The kind of rest that doesn't need all the details because you know the one who writes the story. The kind of rest that allows you to say, God, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know you hold me, and that's enough. And I know that can feel unnatural. We've been taught that if we're not constantly moving, if we're not constantly achieving, then we're falling behind. But that's not kingdom. In the kingdom, your pace is not determined by pressure, it's determined by presence. And sometimes God will slow you down on purpose to keep you aligned. Sometimes he'll call you to rest, not because you're doing something wrong, but because he wants to remind you that the outcome was never in your hands to begin with. Family, you don't have to carry the weight of figuring out everything that April 12, 2025 might bring. You don't have to have the blueprint for what's next. You don't have to know how it will all unfold, because the truth is God already does. He's Alpha and Omega. He's the God who finishes what he starts. And if he's the one who brought you this far, he's not about to leave you now. If he's the one who planted the vision in your spirit, then he is also the one who will provide the provision, the people, the strategy, and the strength. So yes, be diligent. Yes, prepare. But do not for one moment believe that your effort is what sustains the promise. Rest is your reminder that this thing is God ordained. And what is God ordained cannot be derailed by human error. His timing is perfect, his ways are higher, and his spirit will lead you every step of the way. But you've got to give yourself permission to breathe. You've got to silence the noise of comparison, the temptation to overperform, and the lie that says you're not doing enough. Sometimes the next instruction won't come until you get still. Sometimes the peace you're praying for is on the other side of putting your phone down, turning off the voices, and sitting in the presence of the one who knows the end from the beginning. Because in that stillness, he speaks. In that rest, he reveals. In that pause, he restores. And that restoration is what will prepare you for what's coming. Rest recalibrates your soul. It reminds you that you're not God. You were never created to carry the whole world on your shoulders. You were created to walk with God, not ahead of him. And when you rest, you realign your spirit to heaven's rhythm. You move from striving to surrender, from burnout to balance, from fear to faith. And don't confuse rest with inactivity. Sometimes the most obedient thing you can do is wait. Not because you're lazy, but because you trust his timing more than your urgency. When Jesus was in the boat with the disciples and the storm came, what was he doing? He was sleeping, resting, while the winds raged and the waves crashed. The Prince of Peace was at peace. Why? Because he knew who he was. He knew the storm had no authority over his assignment. And family, neither does yours. You have permission to rest, not because everything is perfect, but because God is present, and his presence is your provision. His presence is your confidence. So don't let the unknown of a date, a season, or a transition steal your peace, because while the world is shouting about what might happen, heaven is steady. Heaven is calm. Heaven is not in a panic, and neither should you be. You are anchored. You are held. And you are walking into the future with a Savior who is not surprised by anything that lies ahead. So let your soul be still. Let your heart find quiet. Let your spirit return to the place where you don't need all the answers, just the assurance that he is with you. And if he is with you, you already have everything you need.